gotta wash my hands. Woohoo! All right, let's see. It is 4 o'clock. It's time to get started. It's been pointed out to me that I am not wearing a jacket today, not wearing a tie. We're going pretty casual today. So I've got a few people on. I think we had maybe 20 or 30 that signed up. But as always, we're going to cover some things today. This is our weekly level-headed perspective. So we're going to cover some things, what's new, what's going on. We'll talk about some perceptions. We'll talk about some of the latest and greatest news. I'll share some personal things with you, and then we're going to get some feedback for our future webinars. So I want to ask some questions of the group and ask that you send us some feedback on some of the things that we're doing. So let's get started. So our weekly perspective, this is what I consider to be your level-headed weekly update. It's very important to keep your head about you while others around you are losing theirs. So this is before the quarantine and after the quarantine. I love that. Gotta love that. So I just don't get why I'm not losing weight right now. I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me. Actually, I have lost 10 pounds, folks. So I'm very pleased about that. Some new skills. Are you acquiring any new skills during the quarantine? This is a repeat from last week, but I love this so much. That's a beautiful skill to have. You notice there's nothing on the table there. That's good work right there. That's impressive work. So let's talk about some good news. As of today, Thursday, April 30th, 2020, there are over 1 million people that have officially recovered from COVID-19. From the coronavirus. We are at 1,023,588. If you remember back on the first time I had these numbers out, I think it was Monday, April 13th, there was 435,000. We have doubled that in 2 weeks. So that's pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy about that. Virus bell curve in the US. New cases are flattening. So if you're looking at the bell curve, you'll see that we've kind of had a flattening of the bell curve. A little spike there on that one. COVID-19 deaths in the United States, 50% of these are all in New York, New Jersey, and Michigan, with the bulk coming from New York. So as opposed to across the nation. I share that with you because it leads right into this next slide. The cases in New York, you can see that the number of new cases is actually going down quite a bit, and also the number of deaths. So that's good news. I shared this last week. I love this. 93-year-old Olive had a picture that she posted. It said, "I need more beer." And the next following Monday, Molson Coors showed up at her house. And this is I love, this is her on the porch, and they delivered over 150 Coors Light beers. So she had cases of beer on the front porch, and then she had her little sign in the window. She's really happy she got more beers. Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming it. I love this quote by Helen Keller. I've shared some of these with you. Keith, 101 years old. We had the World War II veteran, 104th birthday after recovering from COVID. British Prime Minister recovers. This is a news story. I thought this was pretty interesting. Captain Tom Moore, 99 years old, has raised over 28 million pounds for the NHS by walking laps in his garden. I think that is awesome. So in crisis, facts are your allies. Quite frankly, you want to pay attention to the facts because facts are your friend. So I have often talked about this. People have kind of questioned, okay, well, you seem a little bit too optimistic, or I don't think you're taking this serious enough. And I've heard that a couple times. Fortunately, I haven't heard it from many of my clients, so that's very encouraging for me. But one of the things that I think about is facts are really our allies when it comes to this kind of stuff. I believe every life is valuable. So make no mistake, I believe every single life is valuable. I believe every COVID-19 casualty is a tragedy. I believe that every casualty is a tragedy. And I believe that we have to put every tragedy into perspective or we'll end up with panic. And nobody can always, I would talk to my kids. We were swimming a couple summers ago when we first got our little pool in the backyard. And I had my daughter and Danielle tried, I thought she was going to kill me because I held Danica underwater. And when she started to come up, I kind of held her there. Now, I didn't hold her there for a long period of time, but just a second, just enough that it made her panic. And when we can't get oxygen, it's a natural reaction to panic. But typically, when you panic, you freeze. And I think all of the negative and all the negative news that we get is making people kind of freeze and panic. And I don't think that's good. And I think the main, with Danica, after she came up, she panicked, she was upset. And I explained to her, I did this on purpose to make you panic because here's what you should do. If somebody does this in a public pool, you need to fight to get out and get air. So following day or two, I did it to her again and she didn't panic and she got away very quickly and she thought it was fun. So then it became a game for her. She wanted me to try to hold her under so Parent of the Year award when you try to drown your child, but it really explained what I was trying to accomplish, or this story kind of explains what I'm trying to accomplish, which is to prepare them so that they don't panic, because every tragedy in situations like this have to be put into perspective so that we don't panic. So there are three questions that I continuously ask. How's the U.S. doing with COVID-19 versus other countries? Number one. Number two, is this thing getting better or is it getting worse? And number three, how does it compare with other diseases? And I have had I appreciate the questions that I've been getting via email, and I'm going to get to all of those questions today. But one of them was, how does it compare with other diseases? And I said, go back and watch some of these webinars because I talk about that every week. But when we stop and we think about some things, the first thing that I want to think about or talk about is how are we doing as a country versus some of the other countries? So when you look at our population in millions, we have about 327 million. You can look at Sweden on the other side with 10 million, Germany with 82 million. So that gives us some perspective. And the reason for that is because these are the headlines that we see. The US leads global coronavirus deaths as the death toll cases surpass 550,000. We now have over 1 million people worldwide who have recovered. COVID-19 death toll reaches 20,000. Nathan came in one day and he said, you knew this was coming. They've been waiting on this one for a while, but you knew it was coming. The death toll has surpassed 50,000. So CNN, I think, had a great big headline that was huge headline that said, death toll surpasses 50,000. And I kind of smiled and I said, well, at some point in time, they're going to be able to post another one that says death toll surpasses 55,000. It has now killed more people than the flu did in 2017. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. So I don't think they use perspective. So I'm constantly talking about perspective, perspective, perspective. We want to put these things into perspective. So of course, we're going to lead the nation in death toll when we have this many more people. We have more than the next 4 countries, even on my list here. But how are we doing compared to other countries? So the virus mortality per 100,000, you can see in Spain is the worst, Italy second worst, then France, UK, Sweden, United States, and then Canada. I would venture to say we're actually doing better than this, even based upon some of the reports that I've been reading. But Sweden, as a contradictory nation, they've done nothing. Well, I shouldn't say that. They did something. They told their citizens, you should practice social distancing and be smart. So how have they done compared to the United States? We have shut down our economy. They continue to leave their businesses open. Not a huge difference according to the statistics, but I would argue that it is a much bigger difference. And I'll get into that in a minute, but the coronavirus mortality rates in the United States is about 5.64. The rest of the world, 6.9. That means out of every 100, everybody that get it, 94.4% are surviving. All states and cities are not equally impacted. As I mentioned before, 50% of the COVID deaths in the United States are in New York, New Jersey, and Michigan. And of the ones in New York, 72% are in New York City, the rest of New York. Now, how are they doing? How's the media, how's everybody doing on predicting the numbers? There's been so many reports on this. Okay, well, you know, when I would watch the initial reports, they would say, okay, well, this could take out 1 million people. And the headlines would read, coronavirus is going to kill 1 million people, or it could be 2 million. And then they said, but if we take measures, we could get it down to maybe 200,000. So the question that I asked is, how are they doing on their numbers so far? So, without protection, they said 2.2 million people would die. A best case scenario, 100 to 250,000. So coronavirus deaths could be more than cancer. They estimated at 480,000. So and this is a very disturbing thing. The death rates actually are not being reported accurately. This is some real stuff here. New York City adds thousands of people who never tested positive to the coronavirus death count. Well, they've actually run a study on this. So they have confirmed deaths from COVID in New York is 11,708 as of April 27th. Probable deaths is 5,228. Now that's a part of their total of what they're calling their COVID-related deaths. So probably died of COVID. They had symptoms of COVID-19, but they were never tested and they were never confirmed to have had COVID. So that makes you wonder, well, what exactly are the symptoms of COVID-19? Are they similar to the flu? Are they similar to lower respiratory diseases? Just makes you wonder a little bit. Now, one of the things that I think about, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but one of the things that I think about is that part of the stimulus spending has had, there's some stimulus that's in there for hospitals, and there's some stimulus in there as part of Medicare and Medicaid. So if someone typically, and some of the numbers that I've heard have been $5,000, let's say that Medicare is willing to pay up to $5,000 for a hospital stay. However, if it's a COVID-19 related incident, they would pay up to $13,000. And if you stay in the hospital, they would up it to $39,000. So now there's a financial part to this that I don't think is going to help with numbers or reporting, because if there's a financial, not saying that any hospital or any business or any administration anywhere would take advantage of a situation, but if they can get 10 times more money if someone is COVID related or diagnosed COVID related than what they get if they're not, it wouldn't surprise me if the numbers went up a little bit. So I'm just saying. All right. However, even with this, almost 1 out of 3 reported COVID-19 deaths in New York City that lists cause of death as COVID have not really been positively ID'd or had a positive test. Good news is New York City cases are going down. Deaths are going down every day. Now, here's an interesting thing. I don't know how many of you saw this, but the Governor Cuomo at New York, he said, we want to run some tests. We're going to do some tests, and we're going to test people's body for the antibody that is created if you have the COVID-19. And one of the things that they found is, and I thought this was extremely interesting, they discovered that based upon their study, New York confirmed nearly 16,000 virus-related deaths. Brooklyn has the highest number, but up to 2.7 million in New York may have been affected, the antibody study finds. Now, if that's actually the case, if 2.7 million people have actually been infected, then the mortality rate is not 6% in New York as reported, but it's 1/2 of 1%. 1/2 of 1%. It's a very interesting interesting thing, especially when we know that there are people that are being told, stay home unless you have the dire of direst symptoms, in which case we'll bring you in, put you in ICU, then we'll test you. So those folks that have all of the symptoms, not all of them are even being tested. So I think our numbers as a percentage is way higher than what it should be. But another thing is, should we actually be looking at the total number of cases and casualties or the number of new cases? So this is a neat little tactic or tool of the media, is to continue to stack on top of and on top of and on top of, so we can get brand new numbers. Now crosses 50,000. That's sensationalism. That's going to get your attention. 50,000 people died. Okay, I understand what their purpose is, but you have to understand what their purpose is too. Sensationalism is to draw in headlines, and what looks better? The total number of cases, total number of deaths, or which should we be looking at? Or is it the total number of new cases or new deaths? And if we are looking at that, we're seeing a flattening of the bell curve. I've talked about how it compares to other diseases. Guess what? We have now, with COVID-19, surpassed the numbers of influenza and pneumonia in 2017. More people in the United States have died from COVID-19 than died from the flu in 2017. Now, I'm not saying this to be facetious. Please make no mistake, but this is perspective. We need perspective. Every year, we should just start in January and show the death numbers on CNN every night. Tune in to see how many people have died from the flu. That sounds ridiculous. Well, let's see how many died from lower respiratory diseases. They're not going to do that. Well, let's see how many people every day. Let's tell you how many people have now died, and let's stack those numbers on top of each other for heart disease or cancer or car accidents, Lord forbid. Well, that is exactly what we're doing with the COVID-19. So I'm just trying to give you perspective. Lower respiratory disease in 2017, 160,000. Another interesting fact or statistic for you is that the number of lower respiratory diseases and flu-related deaths has dramatically gone down with COVID-19. Now, I wonder why. Now, remember, the New York report showed a third of the people who have been said to have died from COVID-19 have the same symptoms as the flu and lower respiratory disease, but they're attributing it to COVID-19. So just providing perspective. Some more perspective for you. 9 out of 10 people who have died from the coronavirus had underlying health conditions. Coronavirus, diabetes, obesity, and other underlying conditions represent nearly 90% of patients hospitalized. Of the people who have passed, 90% had one of these conditions or more. Hypertension, 50% nearly. Obesity, 48%. Chronic lung disease, 34%. Diabetes, 28%. Cardiovascular disease, 27.8%. So if you have one or more of these conditions, then absolutely you need to be very cautious, because it does have a much stronger effect on the people that have one or more of those conditions. So one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is keep your immune system up. So when we talk about that, this is what I love. The media is really concerned about your well-being. They want you to watch the news every day. Watch it, watch it, watch it. We're going to show you the death number. We're really going to try to freak you out and stress you out. And when you're freaked out and stressed out, what does that do to your immune system? It lowers it. So it is up to you to do things to strengthen your immune system. Exercise, get out and walk, eating right, eat healthy. The slide I showed in the beginning of the cupcake, that is not the way that we need to be eating right now. Fruits, vegetables, be smart, get a good night's sleep. Limit the inputs. Jim Rohn, somebody shared last week, they were reading the book of Jim Rohn, who says you will be most like the 5 people you hang out with the most. So who are the people that you're hanging out with? Are they positive? Are they reinforcing? Are they messengers of hope? or are they sowing the weeds of despair? So sometimes you have to chop off some of those connections if they're not giving you the right messaging. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Some of the things that I think about is once we get on the other side of this, when we think about the messaging that has been taking place, well, what's going to happen when we get to the other side of the COVID-19? Who's going to be reporting about markets and things like that? So let me share this with you. If you stop and you think about when COVID-19 is no longer the top story, what's the message that's going to be told about the stock market, the economy, recoveries? What's the messaging we're going to hear? Is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Is it going to be sensationalized? Is it going to be about fear and greed, or is it going to be uplifting? Is it going to be a story of recovery? You have to, you have to keep these things in mind. So think about this. Is your retirement day to day, or is it longer term? I showed these slides last week. I got some good response on it. I'm going to show them again. You have Jimbo and Helga each purchased ABC stock for $20 a share. A year later, they sold it for $22. James looked at the price every day. What was his experience like during this part of the cycle? When the markets were here, how did he feel? When it went to here, how did he feel? Now, on the other side of the coin, we have Helga. She didn't check the price at all. And when she looked at it again a year later, she was at 22. So both people had the exact same return, but they also both had very different experiences in the market. Right now, we're in a very volatile time in the market, but you have to understand that the stock market is not a smooth ride. It is choppy. These are all moves, intraday, and you just have to understand that if we make a line through this, we're seeing how it goes over time. So just keep in mind whether or not you're a long-term or short-term investor. So it really is a matter of time. I did this illustration last week. Which portfolio would you rather have, portfolio A or portfolio B? Not a trick question. You should pick B because you can obviously see that it's going up. The trick to this is that portfolio A is a section of portfolio B. So what you really have to understand, excuse me, is that it's really, you have to understand volatility. Market volatility is not your volatility. And it's really a function of how often you look. So good financial plans account for volatility. Now, is your retirement a 6-month retirement? Is it a day-to-day retirement? I find it amusing that they even have the ability, you can look at a 1-day, 5-day, 1 month, 6 month, year to date, 1 year. Why sort by days, months, or even a year? You need to keep in mind that planning should last a much longer period of time than that. If we just look at a 5-year, this shows you over the past 5 years, we're still above where we were 5 years ago. S&P and on the Dow. So clearly the consequences of a prolonged shutdown on our country and economy are going to have a negative effect. We've talked about the flattening of the bell curve. Well, when you flatten the bell curve, you will lengthen out how long it takes to recover. The key to this is understanding that every recession is typically followed by expansion, and expansions have been very good with past recessions. So this is your largest real declines in the U.S. stock market, 1870 to present. You can see the Great Depression market's down 80%. This is 08, 09. But you can also see that the market has trended up over these years. So it's not about market timing. It's really about your time in the market. So I've had this, I'm going to go through this again because I continue to get questions on this. When's the best time to put my money in the market? I don't know. I can't pick the bottom, but I can tell you this. They did a study over a 40-year period, 42 years, and they took out the 90 best days over that 42-year period. If you were in the market for the 42 years, you would have returned 11% on average. If you just take out the 90 best days, less than 1%, you would have made 3% in the market. So timing the market as never been an easy fact, but the reality is that less than 1% of the trading days return 96% of the total return. Out of 10,000 trading days, 90 days, 0.85 represented 96% of the total return. So stay focused on your long-term plans. Stay focused. We are here, like we've always been, to give you a level-headed perspective and to lead you through the murky waters. That's why we call it Wealth with Clarity. So now I asked this question last week, and I'm going to ask it to all of you again. So what actions would my future self want me to take today? So I started thinking about this, which is kind of a fun little project for you. So what actions would your future self want you to take today? So I've got all kinds of things that I don't have any control over. My uncontrollable bucket, which is all part of a black hole. If I let myself start going and getting upset and riled up about the things that I can't control, it's not very fun. You've done it. I've done it. I've been there. I've noticed myself talking about some politician or talking about some policy and getting worked up and starting to get angry and mad. And then I take a breath and I go, I got to control the controllables. If I don't have control over it, I shouldn't be fretting or worrying about it. I should focus on the things I can control. Now, there are a lot of people who are at home right now that are working from home and maybe are even laid off. And one of the things that I think about is, what would your future self want you to be doing? So this is, I'm going to share a picture with you. Actually, I'll share a story with you. When I was younger, my grandpa could play the mandolin, he played the fiddle, he played the guitar, the banjo, he played piano, he played a harmonica. He could play all those things. And in their little front room, a little room, I think it was a screened in porch they made into a little room, they had a piano. And both my aunts can play the piano, or could when they were still living, could play the piano beautifully. And Aunt Arlene and Aunt Ethel, they were beautiful at it. My dad had a real ear for music. He would go in and he could just kind of bang around and he could find a tune out of just about anything. Listen to something on the radio, pick up a guitar, and give him a half hour, he would be able to pick it out. Couldn't play chords or anything like that. But from the time I was a little kid, I used to bang around on that piano, and I always said, man, someday I want to learn how to play the piano. Someday I want to learn how to play the piano. And I read an article a couple weeks ago that said 20 hours. If you will spend 1 hour a day for 20 days or 20 hours, you can pick up a new skill. And I thought, well, I'm going to do 30 for 30. I'm going to go 30 days and spend 30 minutes a day, and I am going to learn how to play the piano. And my wife told me, she said, Danica has been asking me about getting a keyboard. What do you think? And I said, yes, absolutely, get one. So as of right now on Simple Piano, Danica is taking piano lessons every day. Danielle is signed up. She's taken a lesson. I'm the furthest ahead of everybody. 4 days in a row, I've spent over an hour each day playing on that little stool, that little keyboard, and it kills my back. I go until my back can't take it anymore, but I'm going to go for 30 days straight. So Cooper is also signed up. He's learning, so I'm really excited about that. I'm really happy about that. This is part of the new norm. This is Cooper at school. Thought I would share this with you. The Chromebook is actually a school-issued Chromebook, and we have ordered a Chromebook so that he can give that back to the school. And this is his phys ed class. He's out cutting down the tree. This is Danica in art class. So we're keeping busy at home. We are maintaining an attitude of gratitude, so I encourage you to do the same. And Danielle had this, I think this is great. If there's no rain, there's no rainbow. So at some point in time, we're going to wake up, and then one day, just like that, coronavirus just up and disappeared, just like Ebola did. So it's just a matter of time. We will get on the other side of this. So stay strong, stay positive, and then we'll go from there. Now, a couple things, last minute things before I give you something to go out on, which would be something fun that we can watch. We have been contemplating, we have done these as webinars. So over the past, I think it's 6 weeks, every week, every Thursday at 4 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel. We're doing these webinars with updates and things that we see that are going on. and I will continue to do them. However, we were also talking about doing a group meeting. So maybe instead of a webinar, we do it as a meeting. We can have up to 100 participants, in which case if you have a video, like a little camera or on your phone or your iPad, you could actually have the video and we could turn on the audio. So if you wanted to share or if you had questions, you could ask them live. So I did not create a poll question on this, but I would like to get some feedback from you as to whether or not anybody would like to have kind of that public forum, kind of like a seminar would be where people can ask questions at the end, or a workshop or a learning workshop, educational workshop or something like that. I've taught a lot of classes over the years. Very comfortable answering questions. So we're going to open that up. Send me some feedback if you would like that, or if you like what we're doing. One of the things I want to share is I love this. I got a card. It says, you make a positive difference in our community. It's from a client. They sent this with a beautiful handwritten note, which I really, really, really appreciate. And I had someone else send me a whole handmade card in regards to what we're doing. I really appreciate the feedback. So let me know if there are topics that you want me to cover, things you want me to talk about. Send us an email. If you think it would be a good idea to do a group meeting, maybe even a separate day to do a group meeting or something like that, if you would like to, any topics. So give us some feedback. You can send it to info at Disbennett WMG for Wealth Management Group. You can go to our website, click on the contact us and send an email if you don't have it. If you're currently a client, email Nicole or myself, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you've got or go over anything. And I don't know if you heard that. That sounded like a motorcycle behind me. But if you have questions or things like that, I'd be happy to cover them. And we may look at doing some things. So let us know what you think. We've been trying to put out a lot of correspondence. I remember back in 2008 and 2009, following that, when I was kind of in growth mode, I had a lot of people that came in and said, you know, we never heard from our advisor. And so at some point in time, I'm waiting to hear from somebody. We're hearing from you too much. You need to shut up a little bit. So that hasn't happened yet. And I hope it doesn't, because I want to make sure that you're up to date and informed about what's going on. Understand that we do have a plan in place and we've got a volatile road ahead of us. Anytime the economy goes into a recession is one thing, but when the government shuts down the economy, we're going to see a lot of strange things that have never been seen before. But we're going to see a lot of things that we have seen before. So stay positive, stay focused, stay strong, and God bless. And with that, I promised you something. I did promise you. So I gotta share this with you. See if I can get this back up real quick. And you are going to love this if I can get this to work. Let's make it a beautiful day. There you go, guys. Make it a beautiful day. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you next time.